Interra Copper, trading on the CSE with the ticker IMCX, has just acquired three very promising copper projects in Chile through a business combination with a company called Alto Verde Copper. We will talk about that deal and the company's plans for this year with Chris Buncic, if I pronounce that correctly, CEO of the new Interra Copper. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, as I said, there's been some very interesting deals going on, or an interesting deal going on. But before we start talking about that and Interra and its project, please give us a bit of background info on yourself and your team. I think you've assembled quite a world-class expertise there, in my opinion.
Indeed, yeah, thank you. So going back a few years, I came along with Alto Verde Copper, which was what Interra just acquired. And so, going back just over 2 years ago, we came together with the concept of acquiring some projects from Freeport in Chile, knowing that they were reducing their exploration efforts at the time in the country. And so we took a look at the projects that Freeport had, and I identified three that we wanted to move forward with, and then put together an offer for Freeport. Now, I should mention that three of my board of advisors currently are ex-Freeport executives. One of them is on the Interra board, and the other two are on our advisory board. But they have a wealth of experience in building, in operating, in financing, and administrating mines for Freeport and elsewhere, and on a large cap basis. And to that team, we added, of course, Mark Cruz and Dave Garofalo. My ex-Freeport executives are Rick Gittleman, Mike Chirchillo, and Rich Lavelle. And so all of them have great mine building experience. And so we have a world-class team that we've brought together with Interra in our go public transaction. And now we're looking to further our plans at Tres Marias, which is the principal property, as well as the other two properties that we have in Chile.
Okay, thanks for that. So let's talk about that then. You already told us about how the deal came about, what you wanted to do with it. So let's get right into it and talk about Tres Marias, which you already mentioned. I think it's the most advanced of the three projects you took over there. Give us a bit more background. Where is it located? What kind of information do you have there already? What makes this project especially interesting?
Sure. Well, Tres Marias is the most advanced of the three that we acquired, and it's located about 25 kilometers west of Calama, which is a mining town in Chile. It's got Chuquicamata directly to the north of it. Our project is sitting about 25 kilometers north of BHP's Spence mine, and so we're right on trend on the north-south trend with a lot of producing mines in Chile. So we're in a great neighborhood. We've got a project that has had work done on it. There are some historical holes that were drilled by Freeport and holders before that. There has been a lot of geophysical work that's been done on the project. Now, when we acquired Tres Marias, we took a look at that data, which had identified several anomalies that were worth following up on. We reprocessed the data using more modern computer techniques and identified three target areas, not just one. And so that was through the reprocessing of the data. We then went and flew our own UAV mag and did our own surface IP lines and really honed in on those three areas. Now, Tres Marias is a very large property. It's 13,000 hectares, which is about 130 square kilometers. And so in these three different target areas, each of which could be its own project, we have overlapping geophysical anomalies combined with interesting geological features that form the basis for a 10,500 meter drill program that we've designed to go and test these various areas. And so we're excited about really getting to the bottom of the geology and the mineralization in these three different areas.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. So you're already I think you already announced your plans there for the drill program, but could you get in a bit more detail? Did you already start the drilling, or will the crews mobilize shortly? Which area will you concentrate on so far?
Right. So we announced a phased exploration program at Tres Marias, the 10,500 meters, which we had designed last year. And so that's going to kick off. We've announced this last week. We're starting that drilling in the coming weeks. We're mobilizing to site. We're getting our drill permit finalized. And so I expect that kind of mid-May we'll be have drills turning. And that'll be focused on the eastern section where the historical work had been done. But also what's interesting in the east is that there is also a faulting system. We've got two faults called the Guacate Fault East and Guacate Fault West. We think they might act as structural controls. And we're looking for large copper porphyry type deposits. And the anomalies that we're finding and chasing here are large enough that they could be sizable. And so, again, combining all of those features, we're very excited about that in the east. And so that'll be kind of the first target area that we're exploring. And then, in subsequent phases of the program, we'll expand further in the east, and we'll also move to the central and the western areas of the property.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's always good. The combination of historical and your own data certainly helps narrow down where you want to go or look. So it would be interesting to see. I'm not sure. I'm not up to speed on how long it takes nowadays to get something back from the laboratories once you've drilled, but we'll see how the turnaround is there. So certainly looking forward to hearing more about that. Now, you alluded to that your relationship to Freeport McMoran, and that's also extends to the Tres Marias project, if I'm correct, that you're operating yet, or you're the operator of the project, but Freeport still has a sizable interest in it. Is that correct? And
yeah, so the way that we structure the transaction with Tres Marias is that Freeport has a buyback option. So we'll go and we'll spend money at Tres Marias. And once we hit kind of a $5 million spend on the property, that'll trigger a decision by Freeport. Do they want to come back in and be a partner on the project, or are they willing to let us go it alone? And so if they decide that they want to continue with the project, they can buy back up to 51%. And if they decide to do that, then they give us $12.5 million US and 0.5% NSR on the project, and then they assume control and move it forward. And that would be exciting because we would be a minority owner in a project that Freeport is interested in developing, knowing with the backdrop. I mean, I'm not sitting in the boardroom with them every day, and I'm not sure what their strategy is, but just historically, they've been focused on moving elsewhere, like Indonesia, Grasberg, and developing elsewhere. So, if they come back, that would be a great sign. Conversely, if they decide not to, then we'll give them a 1% NSR on the project, and we'll continue to develop it ourselves.
Well, they're right, because if they come back, that means it's big enough for a company the size of Freeport, right? And
exactly.
And if they don't, it just means it's not big enough for them, but it may still be more than big enough for a company the size of Interra.
It might have nothing to do with size, but it could be corporate strategy, or it could also be just stage, right? It might not be big enough immediately, but that's not to say it won't be big enough in the future.
Well, interesting. We'll see how it goes. Thanks. So, we've been talking about these projects being in Chile, and Freeport McMoran is there, BHP is there, all the large copper producers are there, I think. And so, is there a lot of explorers there, or can you give us a bit of insight how is it to operate among the giants of the industry, so to speak, in Chile?
There is a lot of exploration going on amongst all the majors there. So, and they all do outsource to a very diverse and broad base of suppliers who are also available to us. One of the things that we're very happy about is when we built this whole company, Alto Verde, on the private side, we brought along a gentleman who's running our program who was former Freeport, and he actually had written the report on Tres Marias, and so knew the asset very well, is excited to explore it, but also has all these great relationships in country who are that we'll be using in the future. And so, when it comes to operating in the country, we're able to do it very leanly. We're operating from home offices, and we don't have a large footprint anywhere. And so, we can do this largely by utilizing consultants as required, and you try to keep things as lean as you can. And so, and that, I think that goes for any small company that's trying to advance things on an economic basis. And so, operating in Chile, I mean, it's been very easy. I think that copper exploration in Chile is certainly not going away. It's only going to ramp up given the backdrop of the commodity. I think that larger cap companies are going to come back into the exploration game because they need a pipeline, and that pipeline doesn't exist right now, and you can only go back to the assets you optimize and expand for so long before you run out of assets to do that with. So I think that operating in Chile is going to continue. Obviously it is a massive copper producer in the world. More than 28% of the world's copper comes from just that one country. So it's a great place to be.
Okay, well, we talked about Tres Marias predominantly now and Chile. We don't have all the time in the world for this interview, of course, but I would like to talk about which project do you think is the most promising after Tres Marias?
Well, we've got two more projects. One's called Pitbull, and the third one's called Zeneda. Zeneda is close to Freeport's El Abra mine. But I think what's probably a little more interesting just out of the gate would be Pitbull. Pitbull's up in, it's very close to Cabrera Blanca, which is Teck's large mine, which is just being expanded right now, and Collahuasi. And so this is, a little bit higher in the mountains, but when we've been to site, and it's very early stage, so it requires some work, but when we were at site, we saw artisanal workings on surface. We saw an adit into the side of the hill. We saw a pit that had some copper ore that had been mined by artisanal miners and stored there with all nice kind of shiny green copper oxides on surface. And so we have to go back, and the initial stage would be to do some geophysics at site and get a better understanding of the geology. We'll certainly have a sample program, and we'll go and fly some UAV mag. We'll do some other studies. And so there are a number of concepts we have for Pitbull, and it starts off with small studies, but it's an exciting project, and it's located in the right area, close to those two mines, as I mentioned. So that would be our second.
Okay, so it's fair to say that Tres Marias will be the focus of your work this year. But you will also have a look, do some studies on the other projects.
Correct. And Pitbull is 100% owned by Interra. Okay,
great. So all that, of course, will cost money, but I think it was $2.8 million you raised in the process of the business combination with Alto Verde. That should see you right till the end of the year, right?
Yeah, we certainly have enough budget to do what we want to do at Tres Marias in the short term, and certainly get us through the year. Ultimately, we will come back to market at some point to raise funds for additional exploration, but that's the nature of the game. And but I think in the short term, what's exciting is that we're just getting started at Tres Marias, and we've got a very tight capital structure. We've only got 22.5 million shares outstanding. And we've got a lot of long-term holders here who are excited to see what comes from Tres Marias. And so, I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure in the short term on the downside. I think on the upside is really, we're going to see what comes from Tres Marias and the work that's been done there historically. And we're looking forward to those results.
Okay, well, that certainly takes care of my questions of why people should have a closer look at the company now. It is.
Well, I can sum it up in three points for you. That there are three reasons to take a close look at Interra right now. Is that firstly, the management team is exceptional. We've got a great stacked team of managers and our board and our advisors. We've got capital, which we just freshly raised, and we've got great projects. And so, not a lot of juniors can say they have all three of those things, and we have all three, in fact. And we've got a drill program that's just started now, and if you want to benefit from seeing what comes from Tres Marias, now is the time to be taking a close look and putting your money to work.
Okay, thank you very much. Sounds like a good closing remark there. Thanks.